election is September the 1st. So you guys gotta be aware, be ready, be vigilant. And, a lot of people are asking political parties to act in a certain manner. This morning I showed in my morning live, some individuals are being aggressive to some others. This is a democratic process and everybody has a right. No party has no right to trample on anybody else's right. And I am out here to bring to you, party leader Nigel Hughes has made a short announcement maybe an hour ago that in the media group that he will be holding a press conference here. So we're waiting. It's supposed to be 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock has now come and gone. I don't know how the AFC operates as it relates to the timing, but I'm more than willing to be patient to hear what is the message and what is the issue. Obviously, it might be an issue of grave concern to the AFC to have Nigel Hughes just after a day after his press conference come again and hold a next press conference. So there might be some concerns, and a lot of parties have different concerns. Like in Nigel Hughes recent, and Nigel Hughes is the head of the AFC, right? His wife Kathy Hughes is one of the executives. They got a number of new executive members. Nobody has to tell you what is the background of the AFC. Nobody has to tell you if you have an interest in politics, but you could be reminded. The AFC was a political party that was formed, and co-founders would have been Nigel, Raphael Trotman out of the PNC, Kemraj Ramjatan, and Nagamutu from the PPP, and a number of other individuals came together and formed the AFC. At the time when the AFC was formed, they told Guyanese and promised Guyanese about holding the original two parties accountable, right? And holding to, because people had become, in 2015, people had very much become dissatisfied with both political parties. Yeah, good morning, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. So, Amanza is moving forward Guyana movement, and she was with the PNC and is now have now formed her own party. And as much as here, let me tell you, this is not my morning program. On my morning program, I say what I want and do. I give my opinion and do it. This here is a political turf, right? And I come here to broadcast to you what political leaders have to tell you. Also, Simona Brooms is here, and you're gonna see my modus operandi. I change because remember they invite me to their press conference. When you come to somebody's house, you're invited. Yeah. When you come to somebody's house, you got to act in a certain manner, in a different manner. And even all the political opposition parties are coming together. And I would want to think if PPP members all come here, they're gonna come together and as politicians, people be civil up at the top. And this is a number of different leaders. I see, surprising it might be a little more than what was expected. I thought this AFC alone is going to be saying something, but I'm seeing different party leaders are here, and maybe there's some bit of concern that they intend on expressing. So for my followers and viewers, if there's an expectancy of some sort of showdown here with me and political individuals, remember I am just in terms of politics, I'm a political commentator. I ain't got no party, I ain't got no horse in the race, right? I don't have a political party. I am not a party. Right? But I've seen a number of the heads of different political parties. All right, buddy. Here, and I'm supposing they're giving some time for other media houses to come in to be able to express their concerns. Initially I thought this was a concern of just the AFC, but it seems that a number of parties, um, the leaders of a number of small parties are here. I see VPAC, Forward Guyana Movement is here. I see Simona Broom's ALP is also here, and the members of the AFC are also here. So basically, everybody is here, and let me go in and hear exactly what is it that the intention here is. The Guyanese Critic is coming to you live from just outside the Umanayana, where a bit of what you guys say, an emergency press conference was called together by Kathy Hughes, who is the wife of the leader of AFC, and she's also executive member of the AFC. So I am here to broadcast to you live what what those concerns are. Obviously, it has to be concerns in a political time like this. Is a tense time. Um, there are a lot of concerns. I was just given a little bit of a history of the AFC and where it comes from and where it's forged out. The AFC was forged out of, you know, the PPP and the PNC, and they were expected all the years to act in a certain manner. Unfortunately, might have fall way short of what they had promised the people initially, right? So, um, so you got people coming from all walks, like you hear and all kind of thing. I know what's going on, but we watch and see what's going on and waiting to hear what um, the small party leadership has to say. I initially thought it would have been um, Mr. Nigel Hughes alone holding a press conference in a statement. There seems to be a little difference in dynamics here because Simona Brooms, who has her own parties here, I see an individual from VPAC, which is contesting as one of the political parties in this here also, and executive members who left um, the PNC also and formed the party is here also. So this obviously is a joint statement by small opposition parties and the AFC.
Good morning, Dr. Thanks very much for coming. Our apologies for starting a little late. As you can see here, we have members of the ELP, we have Forward Guyana, and of course Alliance for Change, and you've seen the APNU stand. As you know, the APNU was the first party to arrive here as soon as they concluded their conference on their launch, on Sunday, and they came here and established the presence. We came here as the second party on Tuesday, about 5:30 in the afternoon. When we got here, the only party was the APNU, and we inquired from them if any other party had established themselves here. They said no. We went to the security hut to record our presence. The security guard said specifically that she is not authorized to record any presence, and we would have to await the arrival of her supervisor the following morning. Of course, we went live when we got here on Tuesday, and we pointed out. I personally actually did a scan of the location here from White Slane all the way to Seawall Road, and there was no other party other than APNU and ourselves when we were established. On Wednesday morning, a security officer from GCOM by the name of Mr. Stewart came here and asked us to record our presence and asked all the political parties to record their presence. By that time, two other political parties were here. The ALP was here and Forward Ghana was here. And Mr. Stewart took out his book and recorded in the book APNU at number 1, AFC at number 2, ALP at number 3, and Forward Ghana at number 4. And he said specifically to my representative when he was recording the presence of the parties, upon her inquiry, he said, this is the order of the persons who are out here. Prior to that, we had written to GCOM asking them specifically about the procedure for the reception of the list of candidates on Monday. Didn't get a response. We held a press conference yesterday in which again he reiterated the difficulties. By then, we had learned officially that the APNU was going to be coming north along High Street, the PPP was going to be coming west along Young Street, and all the other parties were going to come along the Seawall Road. We indicated our concern about how they were going to keep order. We were told that the Guyana Police Force will establish a presence here at 6 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, and we were also learned that at 12 midnight on Sunday, GCOM was going to come out here for the purpose of recording the presence of political parties. I expressed at that time my concern because how is GCOM going to come at midnight with 3 separate locations to know who came first? As you know, yesterday we had a press conference and we made it particularly clear that this is a recipe for absolute disaster. One, GCOM should have indicated to all the parties before what the procedure is, and we said no later than yesterday evening, GCOM should make all parties aware, not just the 4 parties out here, all the parties in the country, all the contestants, aware of what the procedure and process is for recording the reception of the list of nominees. Then, last night, very late, we received a letter from GCOM dated July 11th and permit me to read it to you. It's addressed to me in my official capacity in the AFC, and it says, Dear Mr. Hughes, entitled Order for Submission of Lists of Candidates in Nomination Day. The Guyana Elections Commission does not have a formalized process that sets out the order for the arrival of contesting political parties to submit their list of candidates to contest the general and regional elections. Against this background, the Commission is confronted with a situation where 3 political parties position themselves outside of the compound of Humanayana, and 1 party submitted a photograph with attached text as evidence of their presence at the venue on July 7th, as an indication of its position as the second in line to submit its list. Sorry, let me just read that again. Against this background, the Commission is confronted with a situation where 3 political parties positioned themselves outside the compound of Humanayana, and 1 party submitted a photograph with attached text as evidence of its presence at the venue on July 7, 2025, as an indication of its position as the second in line to submit its list. According to this party, their representatives departed when they recognized that GCOM had not yet taken possession of the venue. Having communicated formally with the chairman and commissioners on this matter, and in an attempt to give a semblance of orderly conduct on nomination day, the Guyana Elections Officer has decided to allocate second place to that party that laid claim to that spot. In view of the foregoing, please be informed that you have been allocated the 3rd place to submit your list of candidates to contest the September 1st, 2025 general and regional elections. So we have very, very grave concerns. Upon my receipt, actually, I was notified of this by a very close political colleague from another party. And upon my receipt of this email, which I shared, I spoke to Ms. Bona Brooms and Ms. Amanda Walton this year. Here are our concerns, and they will also speak to their respective parties. 1, if GCOM has admitted that there's no formalized procedure, then effectively there's no procedure in existence for them to award any position to any party. It doesn't matter whether it's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or 19th. If you don't have a formalized official procedure, how are you possibly awarding a position? In the absence of having a formalized procedure, you then rely on custom and practice. And the custom and practice from elections before was that the parties came here, and when they opened the book, the first party to present their list is the party that is recorded, and it came down in chronological order. You may recall that in the 2020 elections, the APNU was the first person, I believe they had an athlete in their group, the fence was scaled, and they presented their list. So the custom and practice, in the absence of any official procedure, has been the first party, the second party, and the parties in order of their chronological attendance to present their list. So for GCOM to say two things: one, they have no formalized list, but the PPP is second, is, I think, a great, not only indication of their intention to manipulate this process in favor of a specific political party, but it is also a clear breach of the equal treatment of all the contestants in the election. Secondly, GCOM, if they had an established custom and practice, should have notified all the political parties long before any party was established here that they were no longer abiding by the existing custom and practice. And I suspect that why APNU came out first is because, in the absence of any indication from GCOM for any other procedure, that is the presumption. Third, if GCOM's own records, their own security officer recorded AFC as number 2, APNU as 1, ALP as 3, Forward Guyana as 4, on what basis have they now said we will disregard their recorded information from their own security officer who represented to the parties present that this is the order in which GCOM is going to treat with the parties' arrival here for the purposes of submitting this? How do they justify refusing to acknowledge and recognize their own record? So we have, at this very early stage in the final run-up to the elections in September 1st, clear acts of discrimination by GCOM in favor of a specific political party. Obviously, we condemn this, but we believe more than that, that this calls for a strong protest across the political arena. Fourthly, apart from the recording of the names on the list, we are asking that GCOM indicate to us what is the process for encoding the information in GCOM. You see, they could receive the list 1, 2, 3, 4, but they can take the fourth party and encode the fourth party's information first. So we want, first of all, for GCOM to indicate the process for encoding. Clearly, because we don't trust them, we want to make sure every political party has an observer at the encoding as well as the international observers. Because it is clear that they can manipulate the process further than they have done at the moment. Clearly, they've manipulated it to put the PPP second, despite the evidence that they recorded. And in the encoding, they can take the PPP's list first, even if the PPP is not the official, the first party, and encode that information first and all the other parties second. So GCOM must allow representatives of all the parties at the encoding, and we also ask that the international observers, 2 of those groups are already here, Carter Center and the European Union, to observe that process. We also demand from GCOM between now and at the absolute latest, 5 o'clock tomorrow, that they have a meeting with all the political parties to explain what has happened today and specifically the procedures that are going to take place going forward in relation to encoding and the question of how they are going to check the list, verify the list, and which party's list is going to be encoded first and what safeguards they have. I will stop there for the moment, and I'll ask Ms. Brooms, followed by Ms. Walton Desir, to say a few words.
Thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. It is sad to see the violation of the rights of the electorate in this country and the disrespect shown by GCOM. GCOM, we are facing a general and regional election. And GCOM It's been embarrassing themselves. That letter is very, very embarrassing that GCOM sent to me because I received a copy of that letter from GCOM, stating you have no position, but you're making a decision. It therefore means, what does GCOM say? That you go into the bank and you join the line or the embassy or anywhere, and you leave and you take a selfie and you put it on Facebook and you say, I was here. And when you get back here, that is your space in the line. Because as we speak here now, and the media was here before, there's nobody here from the PPP. None. I look at the newscast the other day, Stabrook News, Travis Chase, a lot of media outlets was here, and nobody was here from the PPP. So what are you saying to us? That you don't have to come and wait. Just take a picture and you get some text messages, and that is how we're going into an election. GCOM looking, that's a recipe for disaster. And I want to say quite clearly, that it is not business as usual. GCOM is just not dealing with the commissioners that they have there, 3 from the PPP and 2 from the APNU or AFC and the 3, and just listen, to hell with the rest. We are competing in these elections, and you have to treat us with respect. You cannot treat us like this to tell us we don't have no means and way of getting information. Yesterday, you received that, and then to say to us that we are number 4. Who is GCOM? Why? When? There's the only time their son semi-autonomy body. Is that how we're going to go into an election? The system that was outlined by my friend here, Mr. Youth, about the direction in which you're coming from, that was outlined to me by the police. It was never by GCOM. GCOM has said absolutely nothing. But you have nomination day, and this is what you do. GCOM promised at the last meeting to reach with us again because there was a lot of concerns. They said, listen, we can't deal with anything. We're just here to give you a briefing, an incomplete briefing. And that GCOM has never honored. I don't trust GCOM. GCOM going on like what they're doing. Even the people at the market selling 2 mangoes don't operate like that. What GCOM feel it is at all. So this election is not, we're not there to compete. We're just here. So let GCOM give us the results of the 1st of September. They look to me like they got the results for the 1st of September. Because if you don't have a system, Mr. Sharma, to say how you're receiving this list, but you saying who is second on the list, then you don't know who wins the elections. Why are we going to elections, GCOM? This is not something simple. This has serious implications. I was in Region 6 and learned that people going on the GCOM list, the whole list, take off people's ID card and 4 signatures. And so when you submit it here, and if that is happening, and I have persons, I have evidence of what I'm saying. So when GCOM get the list, and the persons go before, and the PPP and APNU, they go before. When the APNU go, who first go? That established. So the names there, somebody signed for you, or the name appear there. By the time somebody sign, never signed this list, and somebody forged my signature, it's 1 day window that GCOM give you. So you're locked out. So the implications here is something we cannot ignore. So GCOM, with all the observers and the Carters and the European Union and everything, GCOM is demonstrating to us that there's never an intention to come this 2025 on September 4th to have any free and fair process. From the outcome, it is very clear. GCOM sat with us. They had no information to give to us. You can ask them questions. Coming in very new. GCOM said even the list is just for the bigger parties, the PPP and the APNU. GCOM is only recognizing those 2 parties. And for the others, we'll give you a flash drive. So why you give the bigger parties a flash drive? But I want to say to GCOM, I don't know about the rest of what happened before, but ain't gonna be business as usual. I am not going to accept that nonsense that GCOM sent to me as a form as an email. And I am joining the call with Mr. Yu to say, listen, GCOM, you got to come to the table and sit down and talk to us. No matter with this email thing. If you don't have a position, let us know now what is your position. Let us get to a position before Monday. Position yourself. GCOM must position itself. You understand what I'm saying, critics?
Yes,
let GCOM position itself.
I agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Mr. Manzur.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Unlike my two colleagues, I had not received correspondence from GCOM. So we had to call, and apologies. And upon calling, we were advised that we would be fifth in line. And so the implications for this, they're dire. I want to point out to you in real terms what newer parties like Forward Guyana Movement and of course ALP we would have had to do in order to be able to compete in these elections. So for us to compete, you have to qualify for a minimum of 6 regions, a minimum of 6 regions at the national and the regional level. And then you have to have 175 signatures max supporting your list. And then there's a national top-up list of about 300 to 400 signatures. So what we had to do is go into every region, convince Guyanese citizens in those communities that we are here, this is our vision, and we are asking for your support as nominators. They would have signed the form, appended their ID number and their signature. And so imagine having to do that as a new movement for a minimum of 6 regions. Now, what are the implications of that? And I want to be very clear that the attitude of GCOM seems to be to preserve the status quo and to keep us trapped in this winner-takes-all politics. We're not the older, larger parties that can go to the phone book and pull people's signature and so on and so on, as has been the practice. What we have done is real groundwork. And so the disadvantage of it is that there's a citizen out there who in good faith has given us their signature and their blessing as a nominator and as a candidate even for the region. And that now is jeopardized because you have 2 behemoths before us who may very well, unbeknownst to people, have their names on the list. And this is the reality of the political situation that we are facing. And this is the reality of newer parties. And this is what we are standing against, because it cannot be business as usual if we are going to change this country. Because what they are in essence doing, what GCOM is complicit in doing, is undermining the will of the people of Guyana and telling them, you know what? You will take what we give you. This is how it is going to be. It is always going to be 2 sides. It is always going to be winner takes all. And we will do whatever we can to keep the newer parties out. That is the message that we are receiving loud and clear here this morning, and we have to stand against it. Our people have gone into the regions. They've done real work. They've touched real Guyanese. Every signature you see on our page are people we have spoken to personally and who have agreed to do this. And so it is exceedingly frustrating to understand that if by happenstance, unbeknownst to them, they're on a list prior, their consent is vitiated. What is even more egregious is the fact that this work plan that GCOM has continues to be a problem. Because for the first time in our electoral history, you have 24 hours. So imagine with me, my team in Region 1, our team in Region 1, they collected their signatures, but somebody's name is on the APNU or the PPP or somebody before us list, just by happenstance. What is the capacity? We don't own a private plane, so we can't fly into my room and get a new signature. What is the capacity for these newer movements and parties that people have supported to go back to Region 1 to get another signature? Of course, you collect extras, yes. But imagine if that process is iterated in a manner where you are left without. All of your hard work is vitiated. And so the point remains that the system is broken. GCOM continues to subscribe to a broken system. And this is why we are where we are politically. It is obvious that they are not ready for these elections. For the fact that the Forward Guyana movement has not even received a correspondence as yet is an indication that GCOM is not ready. And so we're not waiting until later to raise these concerns with GCOM, with the international community, because Guyanese people are not going to just sit by and take whatever is handed to them anymore. The time for that nonsense is up, and we are going to have to stand up and reclaim our democracy because this is our country. Thank you.
Just before we take questions, I just want to read the content of the letter dated July the 1st, 2025, which we wrote to Mr. Vishnu Prasad, we being the Alliance for Change. It's encaptioned, request for information on the procedures to be followed in presentation of the lists of candidates on nomination day. Content of the letter, the Alliance for Change is requesting that you share information on the procedure to be followed when presenting our list of candidates on nomination day. Looking forward to your earliest response. That's the 1st of July. Nothing until we had the press conference yesterday, long after all 4 parties were out here, and they come last night and send an email, as you know, to only 2 of the 4 parties. Guyana Forward has not. So GCOM clearly is playing a game, and it's only when they are outed do they feel the necessity to respond. So we have chaos, because if the PPP is second, they haven't allocated any position to any other party. I'm assuming by this letter, APNU is number 1, but we don't know that. We don't know what the position is of the ALP, and we don't know what the position is on the list for Forward Guyana. Open to questions from the media.
Mr. Hughes, 2, please. No controversy. I've listened a lot to what you're saying, and I'm genuinely, as the critic, a little confused. In layman terms, if you may, because I know you know this much better than I do, even the legal perspectives. Give us an idea, the people an idea, how the party will be affected. How are you affected? I realize we're 3 in a line, which have affected who they're in the line. But how do you get affected as a party? Yes.
Sure. Amanza explained that, perhaps not in your layman's terms, but let me say what it is. But
please, for the viewers.
Okay. If Critics Party comes first, and it has Mary, John, Michael, and Joe, and my party comes second, and amongst my 5 or my 4, I have Joe.
Somebody from Joe, the first party?
Yeah. No, not a representative. A nominator, somebody who recommended the first party.
Okay.
So Joe is on your list, and Joe is on my list. If your party goes first and Joe is on the list as a nominator, Joe stays. When they come to look at my nominators, Joe goes because he's already a nominator for number 1. So if you got 50, and of that 50 I have 40, I lose those 40. That's why you have a backup. I didn't have to pull
from the backup.
Okay. So these are not candidates. These are the nominators. You have a minimum number, maximum number 175 nominators. So it is key. If I had gone first and you had come second, and 4 of my people are on my list as nominators, and you have the same 4, because when
I will lose them.
You will lose them completely, and you have to have a backup. That's why.
So the party is set at a disadvantage there.
No, and if you don't have the backup, your list is defective and you do not qualify.
Exactly.
For participation in the elections. Now for the larger parties, that is a non-issue because they have hundreds that they can pull from. But for the newer movements, you're at a disadvantage. You're at a severe disadvantage. So if, for example, our list is defective in one region, we can't compete in that region, and it may very well affect our ability to meet the minimum requirements to participate in the elections.
One of the things Amanza mentioned, and it's important, let's say Amanza has in her list a backup of 5 from region 1. You know, you can only get to region 1, Mabaruma, by plane in time. It's 24 hours. You can't get in a boat and come back in 24 hours. And there are 7 persons on her list for region 1, nominators, who were on the party that went first, or party before her. It's not only the party that went first. If we went second, she's coming third or fourth. She exhausts her 5 backup. She has to go back into region 1 to find new nominators within 24 hours and come back out. Now, if those nominators came from one of the Aquero or up the river, she got to fly there, or her representative, get in a boat, go up the river to the community, and find a replacement. Because a lot of people who sign in their enthusiasm, a lot of the nominators, they like more than 1 party, they like 2 parties, they like 3 parties, they like Simona, they like Amanza. So they don't tell you that they signed before, and they sign on. And the only time you discover this is when GCOM does it. That's why the encoding is important. And I really want to tell you about the encoding. They can receive these lists in the order. They can come now and say, APNU number 1, ASC number 2, ALP number 3, Forward Guyana number 4. They can receive that. That's no problem. There's a partition behind me here. But when they get into GCOM, inside the GCOM, when the encoding takes place, that's the key. They don't have to encode in that order. We don't know how they encode. So if the CEO of GCOM decides, well, here, buddy, I check in PPP, which is at 6, and encode their members first, it means all those go in automatically. There's no check, no scrutiny. So then Amanza comes, let's say, second, she's at a disadvantage. Because if under the PPP list of nominators, some of those persons have signed as nominators in her list, she is back. So it's not just the reception. We want observation of the encoding. And that's critical because I was about to use unfortunate language. Because you could end up rear-ended without.
Trump is using it. You could use it one time if you get frustrated. You could use
No,
it.
I'm not getting frustrated. I want people to understand that this here, they could give you the public show and come out and say whatever. GCOM can come now and say, oh, we made a mistake, APNU first, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't solve the problem because their intention is already manifested in the letter they wrote. So we need to see when they encode in because they have to encode in exactly the same order. Say if the PPP is 5th, APNU first, us 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and they come 5th. Their list is subject to all the people in the list before. Their nominators, if any of their nominators in any of those lists before them, they got to go to find it.
Now, I think just to make one important point here is that historically you had 7 days to go find backup.
Yeah, sure.
You had 7 days to find backup. Now they have reduced that to 24 hours. So prior, if you had a list that was, okay, a nominator was repeated, you had 7 days to get to the region to find replacements if you ran out of your backup numbers. That is no longer the case. It is now 24 hours. And this is what we are saying. GCOM clearly is not ready for these elections. And this level of opacity is going to lead to trouble going down the line. I think.
Amanza, just on that point, I comment to you, Ms. Booms, just on that point. Yeah, just on that point. Do you think this is a direct doing of GCOM CU? I know a lot of decision making happen from GCOM commissioners. Do you know, or have you asked GCOM if the changing from 7 days to 24 days was in agreement with all the commissioners? 7 days to 24 hours.
That is a part of the work plan, and I think the opposition commissioners were very clear in their comments on the work plan that the severely contracted periods were a clear and present danger to free and fair and transparent elections, and we're seeing it to move a time.
But did they vote for or against it?
I think it was moved by a majority vote, which meant that the 3 government commissioners and the chair who has the casting vote passed that decision, as happens every time.
Right. Just before Simona goes on, I just want to give you a practical example. If I said to you, Patrick, go to Aishalton, collect a parcel and come back in 24 hours, it is impossible. Even if you flew at the first flight and you got to Lethem with the water and with the state of the roads, it will take you a minimum of 7 to 8 hours, assuming you could pass, to get to Aishalton. And Aishalton is a major location in the South Rupununi. Worse, if you got to go to Guns takes 3 days from Aishalton overland. And the only people who can fly into Guns, they know commercial flights into Guns is the GDF. Sorry, go ahead, Simone.
No, I just wanted to add that GCOM, because one might ask the question on critics, because you said for the layman's term, that so why not then just have more names? GCOM has mandated, in fact, GCOM had the forms and we filled those forms up. And GCOM had us go back and do it again just because, you know what? They changed it just to put number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to 175. GCOM had us go back after coming out of the region 7 and all of that, and change this form and said they're not accepting the old form and we must go back just because the number from 1, 2, 3, GCOM disrespectful. And the other thing, they limit us to not less than 150 and not more than 175. So if there's somebody saying, but it's okay, maybe y'all could submit 500 names. Oh, no. And when we asked at the presentation, so can we then submit more persons? They go around and say, well, it's not less than, go back to the same thing. So GCOM is clearly, and I am going to speak in very laywoman terms, so that laywoman and the men will understand that GCOM is out of order, GCOM is disrespectful. GCOM get a long ride for the 5 years, and GCOM excited. There is some cloud, but GCOM gonna come down to earth. GCOM gonna come earth now and meet us, because me ain't going to no cloud for me, GCOM. There is past. I don't want to Claudette, Zadet, commissioner, who make the decision, how the decision was made. That is not what I'm here for. GCOM is disrespectful, and I am not going to accept this behavior and this posture from GCOM. No thing happened. You know what GCOM did? This gentleman copied the commissioner of police, this email, and the CEO Claudette Singh. Copy, see, GCOM is telling the police,
Chairperson.
the chairperson. So GCOM is telling the commissioner of police, nomination there, this is how it go. If LP only show up, you will deal with LP. But GCOM lie because they can't say deal with me. GCOM gonna get it right. It is wrong. It is ridiculous. How GCOM could say this to a nation of people?
I think just to add to Simona's point, when GCOM changed that form, which meant that everybody had to go back and get those new signatures on the new form, they stuck to the exact same deadline. Yeah. So it's their error, but it's not as if they said, look, we apologize for making this error, and therefore we are adding 7 more days for you to get your signatures. And that is the iPass, especially when you consider the billions of dollars. Billions of dollars have been budgeted for GCOM starting from last year and this year in the parliament. So it's not that they haven't had the time and every single dollar that they need to get it right. So that adds to the concerns.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. News, there are some reports stating that in 2020, the coalition would have went before all other parties, even though they didn't camp out. How do you compare what you're highlighting now to that period, considering that most persons here were also part of the coalition?
Okay, so first of all, that's why I said if you don't have a procedure, you have to go back to custom and practice. In 2020, they established the center, and they said whoever is the first to get there, they will receive it. That in and of itself is a ridiculous proposal, because how can you leave it to who first run up? And if you look, if they want to adopt that, PNC there, PPP there, retail over there, but it's a sprint to see who will get in there first. There must be some ordered procedure. If it is that you ask, especially in the electronic era that we put it in, and you time stamp it from the time it is sent in to GCOM by email, that is so. Secondly, in relation to attempting to say that events occurred in a particular way and manner in the past, that somehow or the other we are bound by that. That's why I was dealing with custom and practice. That can't be the case. You have collected here, all of the people here standing here, with the exception of Ms. George, were members of the APNU. As you know, none of us here is connected to the APNU anymore. So to say somehow that because we were a member of the APNU, or parties were members of the APNU, that we have lost the right to object to injustice when we see it, I don't agree with that. I don't subscribe to that.
So just for further clarification, you're objecting now because of the procedures and maybe the short timeline.
You're not objecting. There are no procedures to object to.
Oh, okay, but you were okay with 2020.
No, in 2020 you didn't have forward there, no? In 2020,
I'm asking about the coalition.
We were not responsible for the coalition.
I was not. As a matter of fact,
I was not responsible for the list.
Nobody here was nobody
Head of the
here.
list.
I think it needs to be made. I think it needs to be made very clear, because one of the things that we're not going to stand for is to suggest that we have no right to object to issues. We're talking about now, and I want to point out that back then, the jeopardy that you faced in terms of having a repeat nominator could have been cured with 7 days. That is no longer the case. You have 24 hours to do it. And so I think the question must be put to GCOM. How do you intend to deliver free, fair, and credible elections with these horribly contracted timelines? It is GCOM that has a constitutional responsibility. And so they must be held to account. So I have to reject that notion completely to suggest that you cannot make an objection now. Back then, you had 7 days. Back then, the Ford Guyana movement did not exist. And so we are stating in the strongest possible terms that this impasse that is going on has to stop. Like I said, Simona, Nigel, they received their letters. We haven't even been given the courtesy of a letter. We have to call to find out. So I think some of the energy has to be leveled towards GCOM and Proditing, and our commissioners must answer. Why is it that they intend to continue playing in the faces of Guyanese?
Yeah, Anthony Starbuck News. Do you think the compressed time frame, for example, a day to find a new name is because we wanted September 1st date and GCOM is trying to fit into that 12-hour window?
The right to find a new name?
The 1 day.
The 1 day, the time frame.
I know that the man's to deal with the compressed time because she's been speaking about it. But I can respond. Go ahead.
Look, it is obvious to anybody who has eyes that GCOM votes all the time with the government, that the manner in which these elections were declared was not even in keeping with our legal framework. And so we continue to go along the road of accepting GCOM's disrespect when it has to end. In the parliament, when parliament was in session, I made this point. But you know what the problem continues to be? That if you are one of the large established parties, and I'm speaking here from the perspective of a new movement, okay, fine, we could go along with it because it doesn't bother us. But we are putting down our feet here now today, and we're saying, no, enough is enough. GCOM has to be held accountable. Whether it is for GCOM to honestly say whether they can fit elections into the timelines. And I will use one simple indication. The fact that I and our party, as a contesting party, can't receive a notice yet should tell you that GCOM is not ready to have an election, because in any functioning organization, he would have received his letter, she would have received hers, we would have received ours at the same time, because, hey, there's technology to do that. So the fact that up to now, we don't have official correspondence should tell you about the state of readiness of GCOM, and I leave that to the people of Guyana to decide.
Yes, sir. I don't know. There's so much to say.
You gotta mic him up.
So much to say. And,
The mic.
first of all, I'm a Christian. And my God is a God of order, not confusion. And so I got to bring some order. And because of that, you should know I was from GCOM too. I was a senior staff of GCOM. So I know the representation, the People's Act, referred to as ROPA, in relation to presentation of did it at this location once already. So most likely this location will be barricade, and most likely it's a party at the barricade going to be given the preference, right? So GCOM probably going to remove our cards and so on, right? But I understand the chief election officer saying, look, there's no established way of person camping out, and we have to do that. But the chief election officer opened himself and GCOM to criticism. And this is why we are out here. And Simona made a very important point. A selfie is what the chief election officer is saying in his letter. Is his reason he's putting the PVP force. We lined up in cash grant. Which one are we here that allow a man coming in the line and say he had a photograph that he take out a couple hours ago, and so he entitled to go and collect his cash grant? You would allow him to do that? No. So That is the situation here. So once the chief election officer open up himself to that level, we need to correct him. We need to put him in order. So what is the order? I noticed the APNU is not out here. They're not out here because they're forced, right? Good. But by order, the APNU could be disqualified because we need to establish what was the intention, what is the legitimate expectation. We have two lawyers here, but we're speaking about legitimate expectation. So the chief election officer deals with representative and deputy representative list. Which one of the party out here, when they came out here, show legitimate expectation? Did the representative and deputy representative was here that record the name? Did the presidential candidate was here? So the selfie, did we saw the president, the incumbent president, the presidential candidate for the PUP here in the selfie? We only see 1, 2, 3 presidential candidates. This is intent. This is legitimate expectation. They made the effort. So if he going to make decision on that basis, well then make decision on such basis that there was legitimate expectation from these parties, because at the senior level of the party, the level of the presidential candidate, but they shouldn't go there for. They should see the representative list. So I don't want to ask if the APNU had the representative and deputy representative camping out here, but we could ask them and things like that. So you don't open up yourself. The right way is to GCOM, as my presidential candidate indicated, to GCOM, and yesterday at the press conference, tell us the order. Tell us the barricade going to be set up at the 3 locations. Right away, they give preference to the PPP. They only have one party, one entrance. The APNU is one party, one entrance. The last entrance is everybody. Right? So they don't have no fight for come first or second. Is the small parties, when they categorize AFC as a small party, have this fight and so on. So that is what we have to take note of. So the camping out and so on need to put a demarcation line, so we could put the vehicle there now, and we could put the desk there now, and establish our presence. So that is what the order my leader was speaking about, and he was correct. It caused serious confusion. This will be this area from the 14th, and guess what? They only give us 4 hours. The signboard is out there. 4 hours. 4 hours. It just literally 4 hours to submit list, and you have like about 20 parties. Now, Amanda would report the reason why you need to submit and in your interest to submit the list first. It's correct, but more than that, it's very difficult for GCOM. If you have 20 parties, you have to cross match. You have to cross match the first list against 19 lists, right? So it's not easy work for GCOM. I went through that situation already many years ago in a previous life. I know what it calls for. When the chief election officer collect that list there, you have runners. They're gonna collect the list, sign off each and every list. He said, okay, you're gonna send runners to GCOM. They're gonna start the process with the photocopy list and manually cross-check them. They cross-check them for if the signature is compared to signature and their database. So it's not just the nominators, they will also look at the candidates, because candidates do duplicate, okay? And candidates do drop out to the last, then candidate could go to GCOM and say, hey, I wasn't a candidate, I changed my mind. The list could become defective to so many reasons. So it's not as easy as that. So nominators is a serious issue. Also, the candidates also as an issue, and the party need that additional time and room, especially a party that come in before the electorate for the first time. They don't know the nuances of the game, and GCOM should be the one to teach them. Look, for instance, I saw GCOM put up a big release, and this big release say, you know what? You should know Article 155, 1A say you'll be disqualified for being a dual citizen. Okay, that's good. But they didn't tell the people that the 10 regions, the councillors and the candidates they put in there could be disqualified too. So they're preparing you for being disqualified. So they're preparing you for being disqualified because, you know, your candidates could be disqualified from the regional system because they have to sign on to that same requirement as a candidate. They meaning the regional democratic councillors need to sign on the same requirement as as candidate for the National Assembly. And GCOM failed to say to the people, here you need to tell those people they need to ensure there's not dual citizenship too. But no, they see it. They only say the general election part, but not the regional election. Why? Why they're doing that? It's because they're incompetent, because they know they're gonna cause the party to lose out from contesting a region. Why? We don't know. And next thing, GCOM should be telling the candidates, most importantly, as when they sign the form for candidacy, there's a little write up at the bottom there, and that write up say you're doing so in compliance with the statutory act. Now the statutory act is Act 5 of 2021, I believe. That act basically states Section 4 that if you make a false statement, you can spend 1 year in jail. And so that is what they should be telling people. So I don't know if they want people to be incarcerated or what they want. But that is to make people accountable that they should not be signing on as candidates at party list if they know or they have some doubt of the status in Guyana. So these are some of the things, and there's so many other things that go added. So the failure of GCOM in relation to these things. So so many things, but I could take the question.
One question, Mr. Sharma. In what year and what capacity you played a role at GCOM?
I was the chief financial officer.
Okay.
But as chief financial officer, basically, you have to go to the level of the head of the president's secretariat to make submissions. You have to go to
what year was that? While you were part of the coalition?
Was 2006.
Okay. GCOM has never, I don't think there's ever been a time from the beginning of politics in Guyana that GCOM has not been brought into some disrepute of some sort, political parties making accusations against GCOM. While at under your tenure, while you were there, not your tenure, but while you were at GCOM, did you see any issues and raise any concerns that we could publicly relate to? You saying, man, here, shipping is going on, and they're going on every election. I doing 4 elections now. People are always complaining about GCOM, whether it is aspersions, accusations made up, or political party gimmickry. Complaints have been made. Have you ever addressed any of those issues in your tenure, or recommended addressing those issues? In light of the fact you could have gone to the presidential secretary and explained to them, GCOM depends shoppiness, as Ms. Broom said.
No, as I said, I was the financial manager. Right, so
you didn't know nothing was going on in relation to this area.
I know everything that was happening, but it was not my authority or responsibility to speak in those regards. We had other managers. We had the ACO, the assistant chief election officer, deputy chief election officer, chief election officer. I was down there in the line, but I was responsible for finance. But of course, finance have the implication for every single thing. So I would have knowledge of the entire process.
Did you see any issues?
But it's not me to point it out.
May I,
okay, beautiful. Cool. No problem.
I just say this? Because I need to, hold on. We need to focus. Mr. Sharma was never the CEO or the chair of GCOM. So he doesn't have any legal accountability for the actions of the organization. Let's be clear that it is the chairman and the CEO who have the legal obligations, as well as the commission. And so I want us to refocus on what is important. The fact that Guyanese face disenfranchisement because of an incompetent or corrupt commission. And as investigative journalists, I want to urge that is where your attention should be. In fact, you should be ringing down the phone of the commissioners and of the chair asking, what is up with this? That is how you serve the people of Guyana, by asking the authorities the hard questions. We are here as representatives of the people. There are people who have put their faith and their trust in us to represent them regionally and nationally. And we are being threatened with the possibility of not being able to so do because of a corrupt system. So excuse me if I don't see the relevance of what Mr. Sharma said or didn't say as the CFO. We have to focus on what the issues are. And I expect that the press will tell us what are the responses that they found from GCOM. Ask Ms. Claudette Singh, what is up with the 24-hour timeline? Ask the CEO, what is up? And in fact, what Mr. Sharma said is even more damning, because what he has pointed out is that GCOM might have robbed themselves of time, given all that they have to do. And it ties back to the point that Nigel Hughes was making. How are you encoding this? For how many parties? Over 10 parties? Ladies and gentlemen, those are the questions. And that is where you have to focus. And you, as the media, have to bring the answers to the people of Ghana. So I expect that I will hear from you what Justice Claudette Singh has said about this, and what the CEO has said about this, and what is his explanation for the fact that we have not received a letter yet. So we have to do justice by the people of Guyana and ask the relevant and important questions. You are the media. To the relevant people as well. So,
Mr. Manza, since you have the microphone.
Okay. Question.
Yeah. Mrs. Here.
Can you do the rest? Sorry. Can the rest of you just raise your hand so that we can go in order?
And which house are you from?
I'm from Ghana Chronicle.
Okay.
You keep stressing that it's a 24-hour deadline that the parties have to fix any defections on the list.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2020, nomination day was January the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2 days, January the 12th. You had to same 2 days that you have this year too, according to GCOM.
We have 24 hours according
You have
to
2 days.
GCOM.
According to GCOM, you have 2 days.
We have to submit within 24 hours new names, etc., for them to encode. GCOM. Listen.
And representatives to correct defects is July the 17th.
Okay, let us say that. Nigel's point still remain. You can't get to Aishalton to make the correction. My dear, forward Guyana movement. No, hold on.
Just give me 1 minute. Sure. Can I just ask you a question, madam? Kathy, hold on. Can I ask you a question?
No, you may not, because I'm the media.
No, hold on.
Let me point this out to you. Apartheid was bad up to 1992. So because you didn't object to apartheid up to 1992, it is okay, legitimate to keep African people.
No, but you are implying it. No, but hold on.
That is exactly the same point you're making.
Let me answer
Some men
since
say that we disagree.
Let me say this, ladies and gentlemen. The Forward Guyana movement did not exist then. The ALP did not exist then, and so we are speaking now. And we are responsible for what we say now. And I expect that the Guyana Chronicle will go to GCOM and demand from them, in the same rigorous manner that you are demanding from us, answers as to what happens here. I cannot go back, let's say it's 48 hours. I can't get into Region 1 if there are no flights, etc. And so the unfairness of the issue has not been resolved, madam. And so that is the question you must put to GCOM.
But may I
Okay, hold on.
Mr. Sharma,
Next
hold
question.
me, because I love your question, and I like how you're holding it. But I want to make it very clear from the ELP that anything that is wrong or anything that we see needs to be changed, we're going to call it out.
Absolutely.
It don't mean that something that happened in 2020 is right to happen now. It didn't mean that you have people that die and on a voters list and they somehow with the corruption that it is right for now. So while your point is taken and you're looking for clarity on if people's eyes are open, people's eyes open when it is open.
Yeah.
And as long as it is open, then you have to see, and for me, when I see, I call it out. Now, what would save a lot of things, and I don't know if you know, that in 2020, because I'm not going to ask you a question, you're a journalist, that in 2020, if persons was educated, how was the new movements and parties was treated and all of that, that will take us to a different place. But as it is of now, this is a serious problem. All of us want credible, some form of credible, transparent, regional, and general peaceful election. The word peaceful must be applied. And so anything that will disturb the peace because of corruption and favoritism and things like that is something that we must and we will stand up for and against. So, I mean, I take your question with all due respect. I love it that you're pushing for your answer, but I just want to give you my take also. Since I am the head of a new political movement, I just want to make it clear for all the viewers and all the other persons here at this time.
Simona, can I
Sorry,
just
sorry, I recognize this lady.
Starbuck News.
She was next.
From Starbuck News, I have one other question. What are the next steps in the case of GCOM not making any changes before Monday?
Well, like I said, we've called on them to meet with us, all the opposition parties, not just the AFC, by tomorrow afternoon. We are in the process of dispatching to the observers and the diplomatic community our concerns. If GCOM does not meet with us before Monday morning, you would have a record of our protest and I don't want to disclose because we are going to caucus as opposition parties on the steps that we will take collectively and individually.
Mr. Hughes.
Let me just answer this question. Reporter,
ahead.
it was a very good question, but it needs clarity because of the confusion of how the act itself is applied. Okay, so why is a good question? You read an article of 2020? You read an article from 2020? Okay. GCOM have much more time than 48 hours. They have much more time. What the law says is that the chief election officer should take all the lists that he collects and put up a report to the commission. Now, if the chief election officer put up the report to the commission late, the parties have less time. If he puts up that report early, they have more time. So it's left up to the chief election officer. If he wants, he could individually disqualify parties because it make his work less. Because he don't have to print a long ballot paper with 20 symbols. So they could say, here, I'm gonna eliminate this thing. I'm going to present the report at the very latest date according to the statutory timeline to the commission. If he submits his report to the commission early, the parties could have more time according to the law.
As we close off, I just want
Can
to
I ask one more question, Ms. Hughes?
Sure. Can I just say my little bit? And I just want to say as we begin to close off that, and I know the reporter raised that question. The reality is that since 2020, some of these key concerns have been raised by every single opposition party and individuals that watched and monitored the last election. It is an embarrassment that the European Union submitted at the end of 2020 26 recommendations and only two have been looked at. We met with the Carter Center yesterday. None of their recommendations have been implemented. And so for the record, a lot of what we talked about, biometrics and all those issues, have never ever been implemented. In fact, when we met with the commissioner earlier this year, we were speaking biometrics from 2020, and they admitted that it was October of 2024 that the commission decided, yes, we're going to put it on the agenda to discuss. So for the first 4 years, the most important issue to international observers and to the people of Guyana was not even discussed, could not even get on a work plan. So you can raise these issues, but there's a history of it not even being looked at.
Mr. Hughes, Ms. Brooms, can you fall in here, please? So, no, given background, Mr. Manza, Ms. Brooms, Mr. Hughes, given the relationship and background with the APNU, Ms. Brooms, you were a minister, Mr. Manza, you played a role, and you, member of parliament, and Mr. Nigel, you have now taken over a political party that was in a coalition with the
But
APNU.
also mentioned I left in 2016 March.
No, I ain't setting up for nothing. Don't worry. You can get to the question.
So that you know.
By the way, did you reach out? And AFC is now the third largest political party in Guyana. Did you reach out to the APNU, express your concerns, since the opposition leader word would have some weight? The question is because of the fact I'm getting the sense in your in what you're saying that there's some bit of surreptitious activity with the government and GCOM. Clear, you're filtering that down. But APNU is not here.
Not filtering it. It's stating it.
You're stating that. Well, APNU is not here.
Yeah.
Would you suggest that APNU is playing a part in that role to disenfranchise small parties too?
I know I've struggled for 35 years as a lawyer, and it's difficult for me perhaps to say what I want to say, but I understand very clearly what I want to say. I have not said anything like that. It is for APNU to advise itself on the process. I don't want to speculate what APNU's position is.
No, but given...
No, I'm serious. You're asking me to speculate on why APNU...
Well, actually, you reached out, like to the opposition, say, bro, watch, we getting problems here. You got pitching for we. Bear in mind, APNU they post for the list, so they ain't got no problem, but they could lend some weight.
No, you're making an assumption there. I am not aware that GCOM has said to APNU that they are first in the list. The only party they have identified a position for is the PPP.
Well, I've been here. The vice president said he was second on the list. They showed some pictures. APNU said they were first. They were here from Monday.
APNU said GCOM, the responsible authority, has not said that. GCOM has not said to Amanza's party where they are on the list. They've been fought out here, camping out overnight at great discomfort. So not even the party that has been out here fought. So what happens to the other 15 parties? When are they going to know? So, but I am not saying what APNU's position is. I don't know.
You didn't reach out to the opposition leader?
No, I got this letter. I called Ms. Brooms and I spoke to Ms. Walton, with whom I enjoy exceptionally good relations.
Before I leave, Mr. Hughes, the AFC has a list. You've been able to make your list.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Ms. Brooms, if you want to leave anything.
Let me just say, because you make a point there about a system, and I don't even like the word system. The system is so corrupt that we are competing in something as important as a regional and national election for a country. And it must be in that way that you have to reach out to the leader of the opposition. That's what you're putting, that his weight got more weight than our weight, then you yourself were alluding to the problem that we all are facing. Because it should not be. No. I'm just saying.
Not necessarily, Ms.
No, but because you call me, and
listen to me. Listen to me. If you're back me in a car, I call you for backup. That's what I'm saying.
No, but what I'm saying, we're not backed in a corner because GCOM cannot back us in a corner.
All right. So I want to thank all of you on Saturday
Ladies and gentlemen,
morning
thank you
for coming out. We appreciate that you came out in very short notice, that you came out in large numbers, and we hope that you keep this vigilance up to keep GCOM straight. I think it is very, very evident what GCOM is doing, and we're happy that you're sharing a lot of this information live before it can get packaged and put out to the media. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you, guys. So you've heard